Where's all the other Crash villains? There should have been more of them. This game did have a few, and it was cool, but you know, you had Engine, N.Brio, Cortex, Entropy. There's really not much else. In every installment of the old trilogy, there was a lot of villains you fought. There was like more. It would have been great to see all these other classic Crash villains return for the fourth game that are very nostalgic to us. There's no Tiny Tiger, no Komoko Bros. I mean, I know the Komoko brothers were only in Crash 2, and Komoko Joe was one of the racers you raced against in CTR. And that was pretty much it for the two of them. But wouldn't it have been great to see them again? Like, it's neat that we get to see them again in the remaster of the Insanity Trilogy, but I want to see them like again, like in a new game. Papu Papu wasn't there. Wouldn't it have been cool to see Pinstripe there? Like maybe they're waiting to use Tiny, Pinstripe, the others in Crash 5. They're like holding out on that. Still, it was a shame that they weren't in this game, and I don't know. Like maybe it was a marketing decision. The fact that they weren't in the game, it makes the Crash fans want to see them and request for them and want to see them in Crash 5. That it was so nostalgic and amazing that you actually get to play through Oxide's ship. And it was amazing that Oxide came back. Instead of just racing through it like you did in CTR, now you can play through it with all the boxes and everything. That was so nostalgic. I have a rant though about what happened because, you know, Entropy and the girl Entropy stole his ship, but what happened to Oxide? Did he get his ship back? Does anybody care? How come Crash didn't fight him as a boss? Really? I assumed that like later on, after you defeated that world of Oxide's ship, that later on he was going to get his revenge, and there was going to be like a moment or a scene where he gets his ship back, and then he fights Crash or something. But nope, they just like humiliate him, and that's it. I don't really get that. It seemed like they dropped the ball on what happened after he was humiliated and mocked and had his ship stolen. I don't really get why they didn't follow through on that. I do have a mini rant here to say about the difficulty of Crash 4. I've been hearing this up and down about all these people that say it's too hard, and then when other people try to say it's not too hard, you're not as good at it as we are, then they make some bad argument that it's like, no, you guys really don't get it. It is that hard. And honestly, in my opinion, it isn't. Crash 4 is not too hard. It is harder than the original trilogy. I will admit that. The last two worlds were hard. They were very hard. But only the last two worlds. I don't know, like when people talk about the difficulty of Crash 4, some people talk about it as if like the whole game is so much more difficult than the old games, and that's not true at all. They offered like this classic mode, right? Where you run out of lives, you get a game over, and then they had unlimited lives mode, and I wanted to experience it the way I grew up experiencing it back in the day. And I wanted to feel the satisfaction of being able to beat it with the struggle of keeping my lives. I hear complaints of people online that say that they definitely needed the unlimited lives for the whole game. They needed it, otherwise they couldn't have beat it. Well, okay, that's okay, but I didn't need it. I didn't need it the whole game. I only needed unlimited lives for the last two worlds. I will admit that. But that's it. It's a hard game, but young people haven't experienced or grew up playing the original Crash, and I don't like that people deny this. And if you're an OG and needed unlimited lives most of the game, then you're just rusty. It doesn't mean that the game is absurdly difficult, but especially the last three levels were super hard. Where's the Crash dance? Where's the fucking classic Crash dance? I think he does it in like one cutscene. How come he never does it when he defeats the levels now? Back in the day, Crash used to always do his great classic Crash dance whenever he got a crystal or a gem. Every time he defeated a level. It was like you were celebrating with Crash. Nope. I mean, his iconic dance, and in Crash 4, you don't put it in there except for like in one cutscene or something like that. I really don't understand that. How could something so simple and so iconic be forgotten and ignored? Really? Instead, Crash does like these kind of boring reactions when he beats a level in Crash 4. It's not the same. I don't really get the same feeling from what he does when he beats the levels in this game than from the dance he used to always do. So Crash and Coco are still in 1998 after the events of Crash 3. Okay, so why is Crash doing selfies? I hate the fact that Crash is doing selfies in this game. Doesn't make any sense. That was not a popular trend or a thing that was a hip thing to do back in the 90s. The idea of the selfie didn't even exist. And like he even sticks his tongue out. I mean, like, come on. It's just, to me, it's not something that I think really makes sense, and it doesn't really fit. It doesn't sit well with me. Since it's fucking the 90s, why would he be doing that? I get that they threw that in there because I think they were like, oh, you know, we want to also get some young people into Crash. I mean, come on. This is Crash 4. It's nostalgic. It's mostly meant for us old-timers. It's awesome that there's all these young people I notice on the internet that now we're into Crash, wish they were into Crash back in the day, now they're into Crash. I think that's amazing. However, that doesn't mean that shitty modern trends need to be put into the character of Crash, like having him do a fucking selfie. That doesn't mean that has to be in there to appeal to young people. If they're gonna like Crash, then they're gonna like the character. Having him do a selfie is just annoying. It doesn't make it appealing for young people. And there's plenty of young people that think selfies are annoying. Selfies are okay. I don't want this to become a rant about me disliking selfies. Like, I don't really hate selfies, but you gotta admit that the boom of selfies was like being all cringy. It was like it was cool to be, it was hip to be cringy and make all these stupid selfies, and it became a really annoying thing. Like, it became something that shouldn't have been so fucking popular, and that's why it's annoying to see Crash do that. Crash doesn't care about modern trends. He's not a 2000s kid or a 2010s kid. He's from the 90s. He's from my time. He shouldn't have anything to do with that. Bullshit. The crystals in Crash Bandicoot became iconic to what he collects as a main staple. It was the equivalent to Mario's stars, Sonic and the Chaos Emeralds. It was really cool that they introduced getting all these gems, because it was different, but no crystals? None? I thought it was interesting at first, but I was hoping and thinking, oh, like way later in the game there's going to come a moment where Crash needs a crystal, or Cortex needs, or like the crystals will become important again. And in the last world, you just collect the crystals and you use them for like a ray or something to defeat Cortex or something to do with the crystals. Fucking crystals aren't in the entire game. I don't really understand that. My kind of theory is that, back in the day, like, that was a big deal with platformers, like you get the special thing and you defeat the level. Or were they thinking that crystals are like an outdated game design for a modern game, and the gems were always more special, so let's just make it that Crash collects like 10 gems in one level or some shit. I mean, it's just speculation, but if they were thinking that the concept of the crystals was outdated now, then it just doesn't make sense, because you're making a fucking platformer. It's a fucking platformer. If you're saying the crystals are outdated, then you're saying platformers are outdated. Make up your fucking mind. You can't, like, that doesn't make any sense. Oh, the crystals are outdated? The concept of getting the crystals is outdated, but making a new 3D platformer, like the old ones, that's not outdated. That's fine. I don't know, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Now, the crystals would definitely be perfect for the final world of the game, because you go way back to like 1996, I think, and it's like you're back in the day now. So, yeah, why couldn't the crystals be what you collected in each of those levels in the final world? That would have been perfect. I just don't really understand why the crystals were removed. It's just like pondering. Granted, I will admit, as a big Crash fan, I think a lot of Crash fans would agree with me. I mean, yes, I know. The gems are more alluring. They are more special because it took more effort to receive them in the old levels and the old games. There's something like mysterious to them, especially with the cutscene in Crash 2, where N.Brio wanted you to collect all the gems. But crystals were cool too. I mean, do we really have to ditch the crystals completely? No, I don't know. Don't get it. I'm not a fan of the new voice of N.Brio. He just sounds absolutely nothing like his old voice did. Remember how amazing and funny and like creepy his old voice was?
So, you were helping Cortex gather crystals, yet you have acquired a gem. Interesting. Well, Crash, know this. As long as you are allied with Cortex, you are my sworn enemy, and I will do anything in my power to stop you!
And my potion will make me and them unstoppable. Friends, I have a fun little game for you to play. I've got a reward for the clever bandicoots who can reach my testing grounds, but you'll have to defeat my deadly, diabolical creations along the way.
Oh, God. It's like the new voice actor didn't even try to sound like the original N.Brio. No effort here. I don't really understand that. Now, in the China levels, when Crash is running around before you face N.Brio, there's all these like vials you can hit and potions, and N.Brio says dialogue to you as you're playing through the levels. And like at first I didn't understand really what was happening, but it was kind of a neat idea. But the dialogue he gives off is like strange. It's strange dialogue. It doesn't really sound like things N.Brio would say. I mean, he's just like rambling and rambling and rambling. I don't know, like N.Brio was always a strange character. He would say some weird things back in the day, so it is somewhat fitting, but it just doesn't really feel like that same character without that original voice. And there's a lot of things he says that don't really seem like things N.Brio would say. It's just like a lot of random, weird, sort of generic mad scientist dialogue. I don't know. I don't really get it. There was one piece of dialogue that's hard for me to find, but I remember he said some kind of joke about how he doesn't really have any friends except for Crash and Cortex or something like that. That was pretty funny. And it's kind of relatable, so whatever. I let that one slide, but I don't know, like they could have gave him less dialogue and then polished the dialogue he did say, and really look back at the old Crash games and think of things he would really say, that real character, instead of just making up some random bullshit that any other character would say that isn't N.Brio. Ugh.